Hey everybody, this is Steve from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and guess what, kids? It's a big week. It's been a while since we've actually had a fairly good sized week. It's been actually pretty slow. So not only is it a big week for books, there's actually quite a few new good ones. So let's get going. We got a lot to get through. First up, we have Torrent #1, written by Mark Guggenheim with artwork by Justin Greenwood. So what this is, it's it's a superhero book, but what it is Michelle Metcalf is Crackerjack. And so she's out, fighting bad guys. The main bad guy, or the mob boss, or the bad guy boss, Mr. Skeleton. He keeps hiring lower life villains to they're doing armed car robbery, and then so there's Slipstream, Simon Bennett. He's a kid, he wants to be like her sidekick, and she's like, no, that's okay. But so her really, she's a superhero by day, a mom and wife at night. So her husband helps her make stuff she needs for her, superhero side. And so what it is they end up capturing Simon and beat the information out, because he knows who she is. And then the Skeleton sends his villains to go and get her, and in the process it kills her husband and kidnaps the kid. So she's super pissed at this point. So that's really the basic premise here. Once again, in a lot of respects, the idea here is not particularly original, but I will give Guggenheim, he sets it up really well. The nice thing is he sets up the characters so you get to know them. So once that happens with Michelle, you actually, feel for her and what's going on and everything. So like I said, it's not a book that's necessarily going to blow you away, but I did like it, and I think it's got enough ideas and good, faith to go in and kind of see where he takes it in the second issue. I did like Greenwood's artwork is nice in the book. It does a good job. And overall it was a good book. Like I said, it didn't necessarily blow me away, but I did enjoy it, and that's sometimes all you need is just to enjoy it. So next up we have Icon versus Hardware #1, written by Reginald Hoodlin and Leon Chills. So there's pencils by Dennis Cowan and Yasmin Flores, and with inks by John Ford, John Stadinsky, and Yasmin Flores. So what this is it's leading off of year 1 of the Return to Milestone. So what this is doing, so we have Rocket. She's been sent to this school like in the Alps or whatever, and so it's like a rich school, so she's not fitting in really well. And then so Hardware is he stumbles across Icon's origin, how he crash landed back in the 1800s and stuff. And so he finds out that there was, through his research, he finds out that he basically, he's kind of Superman. He came from outer space, and so he's looking for a spaceship. So he goes to this archives, and he doesn't find the spaceship, but he finds a time machine. So he actually goes back to see his, why his father was kicked out and what's going on. He finds out he has a brother. So this is a setup for, the big face off between Icon and Hardware. So that's what this issue does. It sets everything up. Hoodlin and Chills do a nice job of setting a thing up. The nice thing, like last week's Static, there's a couple pages that give you a recap of what happened in year 1. So you can pretty much, it would help that if you read those, but the synopsis of those issues of that series, those mini-series, do give you enough to get going on this story. So that's a big plus. I always like that. The artwork's actually really nice. Colin and Flores are, the main pencil artists, and you can tell the difference. Flores is pretty much handling the Rocket school stuff, where Colin handles the rest, the Icon hardware part. So that's kind of the difference. But it actually works really well they're two different styles, but they're kind of two different stories. So it'll be interesting to see if those stories come together, how the artwork's gonna go at that point. I'm always, I really am a big fan of the Milestone books, and this is actually, it was a lot of fun. And also, like I said, if you don't really know the characters, I think this is a fairly decent introduction. I mean, obviously going back to the original materials is really where you should start. But with this new stuff, I think you can come in cold to this and actually still enjoy it. And like I said, it's got a good story, and it's got nice artwork. So next up, we have Swamp Thing Green Hell #2. Written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Doug Mankey. So, so apparently, Doug had some personal things going on because the first issue came out a long time ago. So it's been a long time gap between the first and second issue. Thankfully, the third issue is coming out next month, so they've gotten both of them done, and they've solicited them at the same time. But so really, I like with me, I actually went back and reread the first issue before I read the second issue because it had been so long. So the basic setup here from issue 1 is that, the plan, basically it's post-apocalyptic. Humans have probably, blown each other up with nuclear bombs. So the Green, the Red, and Death basically want to clean the slate, and they want to kill all humans and kind of start the world over again in what they think the world should be. So the Green sends a Swamp Thing type creature to basically go and kill the humans. And so what it is there's a father and a daughter, and the daughter goes off. He says, hey, you need to go north to get away from this, and you'll be safe. And so as she gets into the boat, there's another guy from the village. He actually goes to the lighthouse where Constantine is. And so what it is Constantine calls Swamp Thing to, fight this, they basically need him to fight this green Swamp Thing creature that the Green has created. So that's pretty much the first issue. The second issue, you really, that's the setup, because at the end of the first issue, you see Constantine. So leading into the second issue, Constantine brings Swamp Thing back, and he goes fights the Green. And so the Green, so what it was is he had created, there was this world that was created by the Green for him, Abby, and Teffy. And so John pulls him out, and Swamp Thing's none too happy about that. So he ends up fighting the monster because he's trapped here because of Constantine's spell. And then the Green actually takes his powers away. So he only has he's human, but he's still Swamp Thing. So he has strength, but that's about all he has. So that's really what happens in the second issue. And now, once again, he's trapped here, so he has to kind of help humanity fight off the Green, Death, and the Red. So that's where the second issue really lands. And also we find out that Constantine goes, and we find a character that I'm not going to say, but it's a character we know, but it's a different version of the character. So that kind of is going to really play into the third part. Okay, with all that explaining, because basically I'm kind of I'm reviewing 2 issues. So, with that being said, I'm a huge Jeff Lemire fan, and I, first of all, when I read the first issue, I was really blown away by it, because it was a great story. And then Mankey's artwork is just absolutely stunning. This is really good stuff. It's probably some of the best I think he's done, and he's really done a lot of great stuff. But with that gap from the first issue, I know the first issue came out like the middle of last year. Like, it's been that long. With that being said, hopefully if you still have the first issue, definitely go back and reread it. It is really very important. But the second issue really built so well on that first issue, and really just kind of threw a monkey wrench into like the story. You know, it's like he's Swamp Thing, but he's kind of basically back to original Swamp Thing. Basically the Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing, where the green didn't exist, and that was all done by Alan Moore. So this is kind of to me, what I love, what Lemire's done here. He's kind of this is an amalgamation between the two, you know, the original Swamp Thing and then the Alan Moore Swamp Thing, which is really a great idea. And I love when writers do kind of go on both sides of the fence and kind of use both versions of him. And once again, we go to Mankey's artwork on the second issue. Really, it's just beautiful book. I really cannot recommend this book enough. I would say if you didn't buy the first issue and you can't find it, there will be a collection of this. Hopefully it will be a hardcover, but after the third issue comes out, I'm sure they'll put out a collection of this. I love this book, and it was a must buy this week. Next up, we have The Last Barbarians, #1, written by Brian Hamberlin and Hannah Wall, with artwork by Brian Hamberlin. So what this is, in a lot of ways, I mean, you can see that Hamberlin is a big kind of Dungeons and Dragons fan, in the sense of this really kind of fits into that mold, and so what it is, there's Sylve, which is short for Silver, and her gang, her basically dumb brother, but her brother wasn't originally dumb. There was a thing that happened in their childhood where their village was destroyed, and her and her brother were the only ones who survived, and something happened to him where he's just not the brightest bulb in the pack. But she takes care of him because she loves him. And then there's a hedgehog, they just nicknamed him Hedgie, who's part of their team. But what it is so they go on this mission to grab this artifact, and while they're on the mission, they end up cracking it by accident. The guy who wants to buy it's like, oh, I'm not going to buy it because it's got a crack in it. And the mediator is like, well, it can be fixed. You find somebody. He's like, well, I'm not paying for that. And so obviously she has a bit of a temper. So she's like, fine, and she throws it off the table and breaks it. And she's like, well, nobody's going to have it now. So because of that, she's basically been banned from all the guilds, so she can't really get a job. You know, they get kicked out of their house, but there's a Claire Lake Falk that comes in and gives her, hey, I've got this job, you can do it. And so that's kind of where the first issue lands. Once again, the story is the thing that Hamberlin does here that's really nice. He really sets up the characters. He really gets you to know who Sylve is, and some of the supporting characters, and because it is her story, that's really important that you get to know her. So once this kind of job and this new journey goes, you now have a basis to build upon because the characters. And that's really a big plus. That really helped this first issue, I think, a lot. His artwork is really good. It kind of, for me, because I believe that he does this digitally, but it has kind of a Richard Corbin look, which is certainly not a knock against Hamberlin. That's actually a huge compliment. I mean, that I really like the artwork. It has kind of that bit of a photorealistic look, but it not necessarily always, but it has a nice look. It's a really good looking book. I like the story. You don't see a lot of fantasy books, so I think that was a big plus, because there's not a lot on the market. So I think it's well worth checking out. I enjoyed the first issue, and I think it gave you enough to want to come back for a second issue. Next up, we have Masters of the Universe Masterverse #1, written by Tom Seeley. So there's framing artwork by Eddie Nunez. So there's two separate stories. There's The Curse of Castle Grayskull, which is drawn by Kelly Jones, And then there's the He-Man the Last, drawn by Sergio Aragonis. So what this book appears to be is kind of an anthology where there's going to be short stories. So there's with this first one, there's a framing sequence that sets up the stories. So the first one is The Curse of Castle Grayskull. Oh, that's a mouthful. So it's done by Kelly Jones. So obviously Seeley is like, oh, I have Kelly Jones. Let's do all the horror characters from Master of the Universe. So basically what this is He-Man's kind of running away. He's just, the prince, and he encounters all the like horror characters from the Master Universe, and it's just, he goes down into this dungeon basically, and it's super creepy. I mean, having Kelly Jones do it is like, it's just perfect. I mean, you can totally tell that Seeley wrote this story for Kelly Jones, and that's what makes it so much fun and great, is because it's just dark and monsters, and it's just Kelly Jones' wheelhouse, and that's what I loved about it. It was absolutely just amazing. I loved, the story was great, the art was, as you all know, I'm a huge Kelly Jones fan, so anytime we get Kelly Jones stuff, it's like, oh, buy that. But then you get Sergio Aragonis, and then once again Seeley is writing this for Sergio Aragonis. So what it is, this story is, so it's definitely comedy. It's pure comedy. So what it is He-Man becomes Prince becomes He-Man, and so he goes after Skeletor, and so he keeps getting the vehicles, and Skeletor destroys them, and then at the end they basically go into Castle Grayskull and start playing video games, and it's hilarious. I mean, who doesn't love Sergio Aragonis? I mean, you're crazy if you don't love Sergio. And you can tell, once again, Seeley is writing this for Sergio to like kind of go crazy. So it's Sergio just stomping all over the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And it was hilarious. It was just so much fun. I can't recommend this book, even if you're not like a huge fan of like Masters of the Universe or He-Man. This book was great because it was just its own thing. And that's what I loved about those short stories. And I'm a huge short story fan, because you have a limited amount of time to tell your story. And Seeley does that really well here. And once again, he's got two top-notch artists, and it's a blast. I love this book. I cannot recommend it enough. And it's a one and done. They're self-contained stories, so that's a big plus too. So I'm really looking forward to see what other creators that Seeley has coming on board after this first issue. Next up, we have Fantastic Four number 4, written by Ryan North with artwork by Iban Coelho. So what this is, so we finally learn what happened in New York to the Baxter Building. So what it was is the negative zone. There was a negative zone invasion, and so what it was a huge invasion, and it was something that basically the Fantastic Four were not going to win. So Reed decides, what he decides to do is to basically transport the whole thing. That's why there's been this big hole in New York, because he transports where the negative zone invaders are in the Baxter Building. Basically, he sends them in time. There's a whole explanation. I'm not going to go into it. Ryan North does a really good job on that. So what it is within 1 year's time, the Baxter Building will come back, but the invaders will not. And the people in the Baxter Building and around the Baxter Building will not, they will not realize that a year is gone. So this is why, he set up those first 3 issues with the Alicia Ben Grimm story in the first issue, the Reed Richards and Sue Storm in the second issue, and Johnny in the third issue. So that can lead into this fourth issue, so he can actually explain what's happened to the Baxter Building. And then there's the ramifications, especially Ben and Alicia are very upset because the kids are, and of course, Sue and Reed's kids are in the building too. So that's why they all kind of split off. There's the repercussions of what has happened. And so they start getting back together, and then they go to find Alicia and Ben, and they discover that they've been kind of trapped in like cocoons by this alien, and that maybe is why they're, the first story was kind of the way it was. It's kind of like they're in a matrix. That's kind of the best way to explain it. So Johnny, Reed, and Sue have to save Ben and Alicia. And so in a way, what North has done here is brought the family back together, which has really been a key to why this book has been so great, is that he gets that it's family. And it's just, it really, I was so glad that he waited to explain the Baxter Building thing, because, you let up with them as a family, they're split as a family, then you bring them back to a family. And really props to North. He's really kicking this new series off quite well. Coelho's artwork is, as per usual, just really, really great. And it's just, this is a really must-read book. I'm really enjoying this book. It's been a long time since I really enjoyed a regular Marvel book, and this is really good stuff. So definitely pick it up. Next up, we have Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries number 5, written by Shelley Fish, with artwork by Dario Brazilla. So once again, I was a little late on 4, so that's why 5's kind of so close. So what this story is Scooby and the gang teaming up with Batwoman, the Kate Kane Batwoman, and what it is, we also along the way teams up with the Kathy Kane, the original Batwoman, and the original Batgirl, her sidekick. So that's really it's kind of a like new meets old, and it's a great nostalgia trip. And they go up against this biker gang of like rat people who are actually rat people. And then what you discover is the evil scientist has this formula to turn them into rat humans. And it's just, once again, it's a fun story. Shelley Fish, as always, writes a really good, solid story. I really liked how he did the old Batwoman and the new Batwoman and brought it all together really nicely. Brazilla's artwork, as always, just really just hits the nail on the head. He captures that, kind of cartoon style of Scooby-Doo and Batman. And it's just, they're a fun book. It's a great all ages book. I love every issue, and they're self-contained. And I'm really glad that this issue kind of got back to Batman and Scooby, which was a bit missing from the last issue. So I'm glad that's back. So once again, as always, that's an easy pickup every month when it comes out. Next up, we have Art Brut number 3. Written by W. Maxwell Prince, with artwork by Martin Mazzio. So Arthur can go into the paintings, and his friends are in the paintings. In the real world, he's kind of crazy, but when he's in the paintings, he's kind of much more even, because that's kind of his world that he really is able to live in. So what this issue is they are getting all the paintings from like the Smithsonian, stuff like that. And so he needs to go to talk to Vox, who's the man from the Scream painting, to find out what's going on, because he's like, he'll have all the answers. And while him and Manny are in there, so what it is, the bad guy has this kid Dylan, who obviously is able to do the same thing that Arthur isn't able to go into the paintings and into the painting worlds. And so he sends Dylan in with, like bad guys. They end up killing the screaming guy. And so they're, Arthur's getting closer to like what's going on in the painting world that's affecting the real world. And so that's where we're at in this third issue. And that's really good how Prince has, kind of waited to explain how these two worlds are colliding and what's going on in the painting. So this issue, we learn about that. So that's a good thing. And once again, I'm really enjoying this. It's odd, but it's really intriguing how he's mixing like the paintings and this, this whole, like how, Arthur and Dylan are able to go into the paintings. It's really quite fascinating. Morazzo's artwork is just really good stuff. And I like how when they go into the painting world, it's kind of like the painting, but also kind of not at the same time. And that's really a neat visual touch that Morazzo has done with this book. I'm really liking it. I'm really digging it. So it'll be interesting to see how this story ends up filling out, because I believe it is a miniseries. So we'll kind of see where it goes. But I'm enjoying it. And I think it's still worth checking out. Next up, we have Danger Street, number 3, written by Tom King with artwork by George Foulness. So, as always with Danger Street, there's like 13 different characters that are in this book. So there's a lot of juggling that King is doing here. So, I'm not going to go through a huge recap. I'm just going to kind of explain what's going on in this issue. First of all, I love this book and I really recommend you read it, but there's a lot of spinning plates here. So the big thing that really is in this issue is Darkseid Highfather has Metron go to the source wall to find out what has happened to Atlas. He goes there, almost goes crazy, but he finds out that Atlas is dead, but his, like, I guess, spirit or whatever is somewhere, and it's on Earth. So Highfather ends up calling Orion, who's on, to send him to Earth to find out what's going on. So that's one of the big crux of this particular issue. There's also, there's Warlord and Starman that are, they're like going to a movie set. So it's kind of like weird. It's like his Starman's audition. So there's kind of that story going out. They were hiding out, but now they're going to be in a movie. So I'm not quite sure where that's going, but it's intriguing to say the least. And then the Dingbats of Danger Street, the original source story that King is pulling from first issue specials from the 70s. They're still kind of running around. And, there's just, once again, there's a lot of spinning plates. So I'm not going to really go into too much more detail. It's just that, once again, I really like this book a lot. I'm probably one of the few people that actually read all the first issue specials, and most of them are not good. But I will say definitely the one thing you need to really do with this book is to really keep up with it, because there is a lot of spinning plates. There's a lot of juggling here. And, but I love it to death. And Foulness is really, art-wise, this book is just absolutely fabulous. I mean, he worked with King on Rorschach, and that was amazing. But the fact that he's visually handling all these different characters and doing an amazing job of just handling it all, it's really amazing. I love this book to death. It's kind of old meets new. I'm really a big fan of Tom King, and I love the fact that he's kind of digging into DC history that's not very well known. So, and if you're interested, there is a hardcover of first issue specials, which I think it's technically out of print, but I think you can still find it on, like, I think Cheap Graphic Novels has it, In Stock Trades might have it. You might check it on Amazon too, but if you want to see where King is taking these characters from, that would be the place to start, if you're interested in that. But otherwise, you can read this on its own, because he's just using the characters in creating this story. Next up, we have Cayenne, number 5, written and drawn by Wes Craig. So this issue, they get to the castle where Seth is betrothed to the princess. And Kaya and her brother Jin are, they're there. They captured the beast, and so they get a reward for getting the beast and everything. And so, but what we learn is that, because we know that Seth is really in love with Kaya, but because he's been betrothed to Nyla at the kingdom, he's kind of screwed. So really, this issue has to do with the fact that Jin has been keeping the secret from Kaya. He can't keep it any longer. He tells her that doesn't go well. And so they end up on the beach, and the bad guys that have been hunting them actually capture Jin, and Kaya is kind of left high and dry. And so that's kind of the end. So this is the end of the first story arc. Now, I will say that the next issue is going to be a standalone issue that's going to reveal how Kaya got her kind of robotic arm. And that's going to be a standalone issue. And they did specifically say that is not going to be, there is a trade paperback that's being solicited that will come out the same day as issue 6, but it will not include issue 6. So you want to make sure that if you want to read that standalone story, definitely order issue 6 by itself. And And then you can get the trade paperback if you've missed any of these issues, which I'm really a big fan of this book. Craig's doing a really wonderful job on both the story and artwork. That's absolutely just, it's really it really reminds me of Bone in the fact that it's very, for the most part, pretty all ages type book, but it has this huge scope to it. And Craig's just really doing a bang up job on this book. I really recommend it. So if you missed it, there is a trade coming out, be out in a few months, and then make sure you pick up issue 6 when it comes out, because that'll be a standalone. Next up, we have Multiversity Harley Screws Up the DCU, number 1, written by Frank Terry, with artwork by Logan Faber. So what this is kind of a standalone thing. You don't have to know about really the multiversity or anything like that. So what this is what Terry's doing here is, it's this story of Harley. She goes to this warehouse and she finds this Wayback Machine. So she takes it, and what it does is it takes her to an alternate, I guess, timeline. That's the best way to describe it, where, because she's gone there, Starro is now taken over the world, and because she screwed up time, there were no superheroes to stop him. So there's no Justice League, there's no heroes, there's just Starro humans. And so it's like Starro world, excuse me. And so that's really the premise that Terry's doing here. And I won't reveal the ending, because she does meet up with a hero at the end. And once again, I'm not going to say who it is, because it's a nice little reveal. But this really is just goofy, fun Harley stuff. And I also, in Faber's artwork is really nice. It's kind of like weird and goofy and cartoony. It really fits the story really well. And especially, like, I think one of my favorite parts is when Harley goes and there's the Starro people. She like pokes one of the people in the eye, and then it turns around and pokes her in the eye. And it just, and Faber really captures that so well in the artwork. It's a real hoot, and it's kind of back to kind of goofy Harley, which is always, you can't go wrong with goofy Harley. So I think it's worth checking out. It'll be interesting to see where Terry takes this story, but I really had a lot of fun with it. Next up, a Foulness in the Walls one shot written by Colin Bunn with artwork by Rodrigo Zayas. So what this is there's a guy, George, who had been taking care of his mother, and she passed away. But because, he spent so much time with her, it's not really said in the book, but say he's like in his 30s, he has to start his life all over again. So with what little money he has, he buys this house. And so he ends up working at like this grocery store, because he just needs a job to kind of pay bills and to eat. And so what he discovers in this house, I wouldn't say that it's really haunted, but there's this odor that comes from like the bathroom, and he can't get rid of it. And so he, at work, he meets this girl, Cheryl, and they become romantic. And so that's going well, but then he's still having this problem at the house where like he can't find this odor, but he knows that there's something there. And once again, I'm not going to spoil what is in there and what happens. But it's quite interesting. For me, the best way to describe it's kind of like a Twilight Zone episode. That's really, I think, what Bunn is really doing here. This is a nice self-contained story. It was actually a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it for that Twilight Zone aspect of it. And, it was actually, it's in that bigger magazine size, and that really is nice for Zayas' artwork, because it's really, the artwork's really, really nice. It's a really good looking book. I actually enjoyed it. I wouldn't say that I was necessarily blown away, but I think the key to it has a great ending, which whenever you have like a, kind of a somewhat short story like this, it's not like 4 issues. You've got to, you got to have a beginning, middle, and end, and Bunn does a really nice job here of doing that. So I think it's worth checking out. And once again, it's a one and done story, so that's always a plus. Next up, we have 8 Billion Genies, number 7, written by Charles Sewell, with artwork by Ryan Brown. So what this issue really is is it's really covering 8 decades after G-Day, where the Genies show up. So this one is kind of the only thing that kind of frustrated me a little bit with this issue, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of time jumps with all the different characters where I felt it didn't breathe as well as I would have liked. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still enjoying this book, and this issue was really good. It seemed like there was a lot going on. There was a lot of jumps in time with the characters, and maybe for me, it might have worked better as like kind of fleshing it out into two. Now, once again, I don't know. I'm not the writer. I still really enjoyed it. There's just a lot I think the thing with this issue, there's a lot to take in on this issue. And but it's I really don't want to say what happens in this issue, but let's just put it, there's not many people that have genies left, and there have been some people that have been hoarding genies, so there's kind of that going on. And then once again, there's a lot going on, and there's just too much to explain here. But with that being said, I still love this book, and it will be really interesting because the next issue is the last issue to see how Sewell and Brown kind of tie this whole story up. Like I said, I'm really enjoying the book. I did enjoy this issue. It was just a lot to take in. I think it's one of those, the best thing I can recommend for this is really just take your time reading it, because once again, there's a lot of juggling here, and a lot of stories and timelines that are going on. And you definitely have to really know all the characters to really read this issue, because there's a lot of juggling here. But once again, it's still really good and still worth checking out. Next up, we have Mosley #2, written by Rob Gilroy with artwork by Sam Lotfi. So what this issue is, so now Mosley has the holy hammer that was given to him by a god. So he's now going after the gods that have that now run the world. And it's almost like a police state, but people seem to be happy. So this issue, Mosley goes after one of the gods, and he destroys the gods and everything, but people are pissed. It's like, hey, we're happy being like in a police state, so what are you doing? So there's kind of repercussions of like, he's been sent to basically take down these gods, and he takes down, and like people are pissed. So this was very interesting issue, because it's not what you would expect. You would have expected, oh, well, he's just got the holy hammer, he's just going to go beat the gods, and everybody will go, yay, Mosley, we love you. And it doesn't happen that way. So I really have to give Gilroy props on this, because it's certainly not what I expected. And that was quite intriguing. I'm actually very intrigued by this book to see where Gilroy's taking it. Lotfi's artwork is nice. It really does a good job. There's a lot of action in this issue, where last issue was kind of talking heads, and there's still some talking heads in this issue, but he handles both sides really nicely. So I think this is worth checking out. I'm really, like I said, I was really intrigued by the first issue. Not necessarily overwhelmed, but this second issue really kind of sealed the deal to, this is going to be a really unusual book. So I'm very excited to kind of see where the team takes it, with the next issue. And finally this week we have Batman: The Adventures Continue Season 3, #2. There's a mouthful. Written by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini, with artwork by Kevin Altieri. So, this is another mini series, a 12-issue series continuing the adventures of Batman. They're just calling it Season 3 because there's been 2 previous seasons. But what's interesting is about this issue. So first of all, it's basically Harvey, Harley, Batman, and Two-Face, and then there's a character, Cassie, who is kind of a Silver Spoon kid, and gets kidnapped by we think Two-Face for her dowry. And so that's the setup for the story. But it's a one and done story, as a lot of these issues are. But what's really fascinating about this issue is actually the artwork, because Kevin Altieri was one of the he worked on the original series, and his artwork is absolutely fantastic in this issue. It really, it's for me, it's kind of a throwback to like 70s artwork. I mean, it definitely, it kind of has the Batman animated style, and it does it, but that's what I really loved about it. It was so unique and different. And he just, like I said, the art really blew me away. This was really just a wonderful looking book, and like I said, you'll see in the pages that I'm showing how just unique and how it really fit this story really well, because it's kind of like he kind of does a dark tone to it. It's just really fascinating. I mean, the story itself is amazing. It's a really good story. Once again, one and done. But the artwork is what really knocked me out, because it was just a mix of kind of old school, kind of Wrightson sort of like look, but also kind of had that tinges of the animated series. So it's a real mix, and I really, really enjoyed it. And once again, you don't have to have read the first issue. You can totally just read this issue. But for me, just picking it up for the artwork alone was really worth it. And like I said, the story was really good too. So that was huge plus. So definitely check this out. I'm a big fan of these. I love how they're doing more stories in the Batman animated series universe, and as always, they're just great. And I'm glad DC is still publishing them. So that's going to do it this week. It's a pretty long one, kids. So thanks for sticking with me. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. Ryan Skinner, the owner of the store, is just a great guy. He runs a really good store. There's Annie, Eduardo, Wendy, Derek, really great team there. Great customers. Definitely check it out. They have a great pull service. That's why I get all my comics that I review every week here. And they offer discounts if you sign up for their pull service. They offer discounts on their trades and graphic novels, 30% off every day. They have a nice manga selection at 20% off. It's a really, really good store. They also have a really good kids section. That's another thing. I'm a really firm believer of all ages books. And it's a really nice store, and definitely check it out. They're in Long Beach. If you live in the metropolitan LA area, there's Pulp Fiction Culver City, same name, different owners. Chris and her team run that, have a lot of the same discounts, so definitely check it out. But like I said, I'm the Long Beach kid, so I really, as always, supporting your local comic shop. That's why I pick my books up every week from Ryan. And, but definitely, as always, please support your local comic shop. They're the backbone of the industry. They make sure the readers, are getting their comics and everything. And that's certainly not a knock of the people that create it, because they do a lot of work putting the work into the books, but it's the comic stores that are selling them and really driving the community. And so definitely support your local comic shop. And as always, we end our show with Be Kind. Being kind doesn't cost anything. Being kind is good for you. It's good for everyone. Being kind to yourself, being kind to others is just a very simple task. I know sometimes it's hard, but just be kind to each other and to yourself, and take care of yourself. I know times are rough, but being kind and taking care of yourself is really, really important. That's going to do it this week. Thanks for tuning in. As always, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Constructive criticism is always welcome. But definitely, please share, and thanks. We got a good number of subscribers. We always need to get more, but thanks for watching. I always appreciate it. And we'll do it again next week. This is Steven from popculturemaven.com signing off. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.